Hi, I'm Valerie Chow. I am the Senior Program Director for Cardinal Quarter, and I work at the Haas Center for Public Service, and I use she, her pronouns.
Hi, my name is Megan Tovar. I use she, her pronouns, and I am the program director for the undergraduate fellowships at the Haas Center.
So welcome to this online information session for Cardinal Quarter, and we will focus particularly on the Haas Center-sponsored undergraduate fellowships opportunities within Cardinal Quarter. So first off, we wanted to talk a little bit about Cardinal Service, which is an initiative that's a university-wide initiative to make service an essential feature of a Stanford education. Within Cardinal Service, we have 4 pillars. So we are going to definitely focus on Cardinal Quarter today, but we wanted to let you know about the other 3 pillars as well, in case you want to get involved in service in other ways at Stanford. So the first pillar is Cardinal Courses. These are service learning courses where there is a service learning component to the class. So you would take the class and then be able to apply the knowledge that you learn in the class in a community-based project. You can find these courses in Explore Courses, and there are over 100 of them. And they're really great, so we encourage you to take one. The next is Cardinal Commitment, where you can make sustained commitment to an issue area or a student group or a cause over an academic year, and then declare that commitment, get a mentor, and then write a reflection on the commitment. Also included in the commitment program are leadership programs that you can join, and also our education partnerships programs at the Haas Center that you can join as well. We highly recommend that you check out those programs as well. And then the next pillar is Cardinal Careers, where we have a team at the Haas Center dedicated to helping you explore options of integrating public service into your post-graduation life. And that can look like a career in jobs in nonprofit or government agencies. And it can also look like, if you're going to a private sector, how to integrate service into your day-to-day work as well in that sense. And then finally, we will be talking about Cardinal Quarter today. So Cardinal Quarter is the campus-wide umbrella term initiative for all programs that are 8 to 12 weeks in length, so a quarter-long program. They are full-time, so usually 35 hours per week, where you're doing immersive work in public service. So these opportunities are all funded and they offer stipends, because a lot of times public service internships are unpaid, and we really want to remove that economic barrier for students to participate in these programs. And these programs are all over the world. You can stay locally or nationally within the US, or go outside of the US and serve internationally with a few restrictions that we will talk about later in this presentation. We have over 30 campus departments and units that offer these programs. So it's not just the Haas Center. There are also other campus partners that offer these programs, which add up to about 500 opportunities per year. So 500 students each year participate in Cardinal Quarter. And these are some website links on how you can find a listing of all of the Cardinal Quarter programs. You'll see our website, the Cardinal Quarter website listed there. Most of these programs use the Solo platform for applications. So that is the Stanford On and Off Campus Learning Opportunities platform, and it's an application platform. But you can also do some searches there to look for programs. And then we also have a map of fellows who have done the program in the past, back to 2016. So there's a map, and then everyone's a dot, and then you can kind of click on the dots to see what folks have done in the past. So that is an overview of the umbrella Cardinal Quarter campus-wide initiative. And for the rest of the presentation, we'll focus more on the Haas-sponsored programs that is part of Cardinal Quarter.
So now we'll specifically look at the Haas Undergraduate Fellowships Program overview. It is meant to run for 9 consecutive weeks, mostly in the summer. It is a full-time experience, so we're asking that you're participating in this fellowship for around 35 hours a week. And like Valerie said, this is a stipended fellowship, so it is a $6,500 stipend. There are also additional supplements available. So if you're a student who receives financial aid, for example, that would be factored into the stipend that you would be receiving. There's also additional stipends for high cost of living areas, which we'll talk about a little bit later. And there are also supplements for project-based fellowships, which we will also discuss in this presentation. And we really do want to offer these fellowships in any sort of pathway of public service. So you could be very interested in government and policy. You could be very interested in social entrepreneurship, in direct service, in community organizing and activism, in community learning and research. And we hope that there's a fellowship that would be of interest to you. And we have different types of fellowships. The two main buckets would be prearranged placements. So on our website, you would see a whole list of placements that have been sort of set up for you, more like a traditional internship experience with different organizations, all again, the 9-week commitment full-time. We also have a lot of self-designed placements. So those would be ones where you as an applicant would reach out to an organization to find a placement and sort of set up a program for yourself. Some of those also lend themselves really nicely to projects. And there's a description of that on our website, but basically you're working with an organization to identify a need and sort of designing a project that you will participate in over your 9-week fellowship, and then leaving that project with the organization. And that is also, that also comes with an additional supplement of $1,000. And we really do prefer on-site work for these fellowships. In the last couple of years, because of COVID, we've been a little bit more flexible, but it is our hope that this year most people will be on-site for their fellowships. So the application deadline is very early because it is, most of us aren't thinking about summer plans quite yet, but the application deadline is February 7th for most of the opportunities. And there's lots of information on our website about the application process, but really understanding the pre-arranged placements, and if you're going to design a placement for yourself, this time right now of investigating what you're interested in, talking with organizations that you might be interested in working with, would set you up nicely for being able to complete the application in February. And also, we have always offered both domestic and international opportunities. One note with an international fellowship is that Stanford has a specific policy with relation to risk ratings. So you wouldn't be able to travel somewhere that has a high medical or travel risk unless you, for example, are from that country. So there's a specific process for asking for an exemption, which is also on our website. If you would like to see a whole list of Haas sponsored or co-sponsored programs, those are on our website, and we will talk about some of them here too. So I think it's always fun to see what students have done in the past to get a sense of what you might be interested in doing yourself. So these are some fellowships from last summer. And just to note that last summer we were really restricted because of COVID, especially for international fellowships. So there's a place on our website where you can, it's called Meet the Fellows, and you can see what fellows, there's a little blurb about what each of them did. So particularly for international, but really for a lot of our fellowships, looking back into pre-pandemic years might give you a really good sense of what is possible with fellowships. So just a little bit about these pictures. If I start at the first one with the food and the red wall in the background, that is Jackie, who interned at the Food as Medicine Collaborative in San Francisco that provides high quality fruits and vegetables to at-risk patients in conjunction with their medical care. Next, kind of going clockwise, is Avinash, who interned at the U.S. Attorney's Office in New York. He worked in the criminal division, assisting federal prosecutors with their investigatory work. And Chrysanth is the one with the porcupine. And that picture was taken in Alaska at the Alaska Wildlife Conservation Center. And Chrysanth is one that did one of the project fellowships. So she worked with the center to identify a need, which was for a scavenger hunt for visitors. So she put that together and left it with the organization and got to take some great pictures with animals. And then continue on, we have Jacqueline, who is a recipient of the African Service Fellowship, and she interned at the Association of the Physically Disabled in Kenya. Following along in the bottom, we have Tiara Bard, who interned at the Mapia Luta Food Sovereignty in Pine Ridge, South Dakota. And that organization focused on working to connect young people to food. And last, we have Isa, who received the Stanford Pride Fellowship and interned at Outright Action in New York, which is an LGBTIQ human rights NGO that works with policy. So a lot of students have a question about how they find a community partner. Perhaps they have an issue area that they're interested in. Maybe they've taken coursework or worked with existing organizations in the past and would like to self-design a fellowship for themselves. So our website has a wealth of information. There's a link down there at the bottom. But just to give you an idea of some strategies, because again, this like fall, early winter time before the application would be due for a self-designed fellowship would be a great time to network and find some resources and eventually reach out to a community partner. So in terms of networking, the Stanford Network, there's a lot of resources there. We have on our website something called the Cardinal Quarter Connections Sheet, and that is a list of community partners, domestically, abroad, lots of different issue areas, organizations that have that are interested in having fellows work with them during the summer months. There's also, as I was talking about before, former fellows, peer advisors. So their information, the peer advisors information is on the website. For former fellows, there is the Meet the Fellows. Again, last year, there's a paragraph sort of about each of them and what they did, which also would highlight the name of the organization that they worked with. So those organizations might be open again to having someone come as a fellow in the summer. The peer advisors are a wealth of information. They have office hours and are really great at talking about their experiences and also the experience of applying for a fellowship in general. There's the Stanford Alumni Network. You can actually sign up with a Stanford Alumni Network in a limited fashion while you are still an undergrad, but it would give you access to a lot of alum and organizations that might be of interest to you. Stanford faculty and staff are often great resources as well. A lot of people come to fellowships by taking coursework that they're interested in particular issue areas. So connecting with faculty and staff that might do research or also be involved in organizations would be a great place to start as well. And then, of course, on the web, there's a lot of resources: Handshake, Idealist, Volunteer Match. And we have all of this sort of put together for you on the link that is found below.
So just to talk quickly about the program components after you've been offered a fellowship. So in the spring quarter, there are a host of pre-experience programs. We would ask all fellows to participate in an online Canvas program orientation where you can learn about more about ethical and effective service and also professional etiquette tips and things like that. And then we would have everybody come in person to a Principles of Ethical and Effective Service workshop, where you will learn more in depth about our principles of ethical and effective service. And these are principles that the Haas Center, we do everything by these principles, and we would love everybody who is embarking on an Haas-sponsored Cardinal Quarter experience to know them. And then you would also be asked to design a learning plan and write out a few learning goals that you have for the summer. and then to share that with your site supervisor and also your on-campus academic mentor who you'll also be meeting with in the spring quarter. And then during the summer experience, like we said, it is a full-time commitment. So we're expecting you to work at least 35 hours a week for 9 consecutive weeks, and to start between the end of spring quarter finals and July 5th. And then we would also ping you for a couple of online early and end of experience reports that you'll fill out for us. And then as part of the final report, we would ask that you write a thank you note to the donors who make these programs possible. The vast majority of our funds actually come from donors and not through the university. So we would like to steward them and thank them, and make sure that we can keep the program going. And then post-experience, when you return to Stanford in the fall, we'll have some reflection activities for you to participate in, and also a presentation called SERPS, the Symposia on Undergraduate Research and Public Service. It's a poster presentation, and you can make a poster about your experience and present it that way at SERPS. And then we will also love for you to serve as ambassadors of the fellowships program, work for the Haas Center as peer advisors. There's lots of opportunities to get involved after the experience as well. And then in terms of eligibility, the eligibility requirements vary across programs. This is specific to the Haas Center sponsored programs. So if you're interested in other campus department sponsored programs, we would encourage you to look at their websites to make sure that you are eligible for what you're applying for. But generally for the Haas Center programs, continuing undergrads are usually preferred. Graduating seniors are welcome to apply, but they may have a little bit of lower priority. We welcome all academic disciplines. You can be majoring in all academic areas, or you can be undeclared. That's totally fine. Non-US citizens are eligible for our programs. You don't have to have work authorization, or you don't have to be documented. You can be an international student. Our stipends work it's a stipend for the university, so you're not placed on payroll, and that's why we don't require work authorization or US citizenship. We would require that you're enrolled in both the winter and spring quarters prior to the summer experience, and that you be in good academic standing. We don't really look at GPA or grades, but we do require that you're in good academic standing when you're applying to our programs. And the last thing we require is that you have health insurance for the duration of your summer service, because your well-being is super important, and we want to make sure that you're taken care of during the summer.
So we wanted to talk a little bit about the application process. You are doing the most important thing in the fall and early winter, which is learning about the fellowships themselves. And then hopefully from here, thinking about if you want to have a pre-designed or a self-designed experience. And if it again is a self-designed experience, this time would also be when you're reaching out to organizations to set up a fellowship. The application is some short answers, a community partner questionnaire. So that would be the partner that you're going to work with if it is a self-designed experience. Your resume, the name of a reference. So we're not asking for letters of recommendation, which is different than years past. Just the name of somebody that is not one of your fellow undergrads, someone that can serve as your reference. So if you're a Frosh, then it might be someone that you knew in high school, like a high school teacher, for example, someone that you've worked with, or someone here at Stanford that is not an undergrad that could serve as your reference. And the application in and of itself isn't a huge undertaking, especially if you've done all the legwork to find a community partner and set up a fellowship for yourself. After the applications are submitted, we would ask you for an interview, which is short. It's about 20 minutes. And then we would make offers after that. The timing is that we hope that by spring break, you are all set to know if you have a fellowship for the summer, so can make your plans accordingly. So selection criteria, this is what would make a strong application for an undergraduate fellowship. Generally, we're looking for a commitment to public service, and it's okay if you are exploring an issue area or a location or a type of service for the first time with this fellowship. We would just ask that you do prior to the fellowship that good research, the learning, maybe even take coursework if that's something that you need to do to increase your knowledge of an issue area or an organization or a location. And so that level of preparation is important, and also working with the community partner beforehand to make sure that you're set up for the summer. And we also really value communication skills with us and with the organization that you will work with, because I think that we found that makes for the strongest partnerships and the best summer experiences. Additionally, we've talked a bit about the project-based experiences, but that would be an even more in-depth relationship with a community partner to make sure that you're setting up a project that would work really well for them and that has measurable outcomes, and the implementation would be a lot smoother if you spent some time talking with that organization. And then lastly, if you're going to do an international fellowship, there is some additional kind of criteria to make sure that you're as prepared as possible to be successful in that fellowship. And that might include language skills, knowledge of or prior experience with the host country. And that can take many different forms as well.
So just some final application tips and resources for you are listed here. We would encourage you to consider the principles of ethical and effective service, which are listed here when you are filling out your application or talking to your organization. These principles, like I said, they're very important to us at the Haas Center, and we would like all students to be guided by these when they are thinking about doing service. So it's helpful to, mention them in the application or in the interview. That will show that you've done a little bit of homework. And then we want to see demonstrated passion and interest in the placement of the project that you'll be doing this summer. Then that doesn't have to be, this is what I'm going to be doing for the rest of my life. Just as long as it makes sense in your trajectory and why you want to explore this area right now, it's totally fine. I would encourage you to speak in depth with your community partner. We've mentioned this a couple of times, that partnership is super important to us. So talk to them at least a couple of times to make sure that you're on the same page with regards to what you're hoping to accomplish over the summer, what project you'll be working on. Sometimes when we review applications, we see that the community partner questionnaire answers do not really match up with what the students have written in the application, and that can be a flag for us. So just make sure that you're all on the same page about what you're hoping to accomplish together. In terms of the reference, we would encourage you to find someone who knows you well to serve as the reference. It doesn't have to be a tenured faculty member at Stanford or anything like that, but just somebody who can speak to your passions, your interests, your work ethic, something like that would be great. And then have someone read through your application when you're ready. It can be a professor, advisor, a fellow student. The Hume Center is really wonderful. We highly encourage you to go there and talk with one of their tutors, and they can really help you out in terms of reading the applications. Our peer advisors are also available to guide you through the written part of the application as well, if you're interested in talking to them. And then finally, connect with Stanford Career Ed for resume review and interview prep. You should be doing that anyway if you're doing a self-design opportunity, and we'll be sending your resume out to find an internship position. And they have a lot of resources on the website, and also, the coaches are wonderful. So we highly recommend that you connect with them. And the last thing that I will say is that we have just as many frosh doing these opportunities, rising sophomores, as juniors, rising seniors. So if you're frosh, please definitely apply. And if you put in the work and, show us your effort in the application process, you'll be just as successful as a upper class student. And then this is our contact information. If you would like to talk to us, we're at the Haas Center on the second floor. We have walk-in advising hours that you can look up on the website. it will be Thursdays from 1 to 3. In the winter quarter, we might also add additional hours where you can just pop by, or you can email us to schedule an advising appointment. It can be in person or Zoom. We also have wonderful Cardinal Quarter peer advisors that you can reach out to, and they can give you some really great advice about reaching out to an organization, about the application process, interview tips, everything. So highly recommend that you talk to our peer advisors as well. Well, thank you so much for listening to our presentation, and feel free to reach out to us if you have any questions, and we will see you soon. Bye.